Eastern Europe. I have understood. Okay. I was talking about this umbrella partnership, which is led by University Charles. We signed this agreement also to develop more collaboration, particularly in Ukraine right now. All actions implemented in 4U Plus include transfer to market. And that's through a strong commitment by our university to European construction. So the thing of this idea of building Europe and strengthening Europe is really something essential. Now, the second point about transfer of knowledge to the economy and society, our university and our president, Nathalie Drage-Temam, have made openness towards society a major axis of the development of the university. The students, the citizen, and the society in large have to be indeed the benefiters of what we produced in university. The universities are made to spread knowledge and advances in research and innovation. That's a continuous relation that we have to establish and strengthen with the economic and social actors as well. And I think this is really a flagship action of Sorbonne University. Soon we will have here what we call the Cité de l'Innovation, Innovation City. This is a physical building under construction on our premises right now. And we will soon bring together the entire innovation system in a single place in Paris Center. The Train 4U Plus package is carried out within the 4U Plus partners, of course, fully part of these dynamics. And we will talk about this during this webinar. And I would like finally to take one original and very convincing example of knowledge transfer and interaction between universities and business developed in Train 4U Plus. So I will just spoil a bit the presentation, I guess, of Hervé Marc that will come, but just take it as a teaser, not really a spoiler, because I think what we proposed with these university diploma in entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship is really a very good example of that kind of connection that can be made between students, companies, and our university for the best of all of them. This is a postmaster training where we have students and doctoral students that are called to solve problems of companies proposed by companies, tackling major societal, social, or environmental issues. And I think in the first year of launch, we had 4U Plus university that could mobilize 2 major economic partners for each of them. That was the University of Milano, Sorbonne University, Heidelberg, and Warsaw. And I had the opportunity to interact with these students. And we had like many groups of more than 40 students working on that. And that's the real Europe under our eyes. I mean, and that's a very pleasant interaction with students and students with companies to solve very diverse problems that were proposed by companies, sometimes cities. I remember one subject proposed by Warsaw, for instance. And each work group used processes and tools provided in master classes and supported by local tutors. And that means that each group then tackle a string challenge given by your partner. And so I think during this webinar, I have seen the list and the program. You will have many other examples of success story. Successful transfer that exists inside our universities and from which we can really draw inspiration. I think we are really at the beginning of a very dynamic of this transfer process from academia to business and society. When you think of for each university of the kind of network we have with companies and different actors, we could just have more than 1,000 per each university. So you can imagine that's a huge network within the European Alliance that we can try, and then we will connect. So that's I think a very strong asset, which is now well developed in each university and ready to grow up within the 4U plus cluster. So thank you all for being here. I'm really enjoying to see all the success story and all the connection that will be made this morning. So thank you.
Thank you, Guillaume, for this very enthusiastic perspective. Now we will go with Jorge Molina Martinez from the European Commission, who is a project advisor for the Research Executive Agency. And Jorge will talk and present the framework of the SWAFS project, from whom the Train for You Plus is related. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sabine, and thanks very much for the invitation. My name is Jorge Molina. I work as a project advisor at the European Research Executive Agency of the European Commission, the REA, and I'm working in Unit C4, which is the unit responsible for implementing two programs within Horizon Europe, which are the Research Infrastructures Program and also the enhancing and reforming the European research and innovation systems. Is more maybe better known as an ERA sector, right? So I'm working there. I'm in charge of a broad portfolio of projects. I can tell you that around 50% of the projects that I'm responsible for are related to European University Alliances. And actually, I'm the project officer of the Train for You. So I feel quite close to the project, which is the project linked to the 4U European University. So I have been asked to talk about European University Alliances and engagement with the non-academic sectors today. So I'm very happy to be here and also very happy to hear from the words from the vice rectors. I know that Train for EU and the 4U European University Alliances is doing good progress in terms of cooperation with the non-academic sector. So next slide, please. So if we could maybe start, I think maybe it's worth it to take a look back in time and to start from the very beginning, to start by understanding what a European University Alliance is about and and what has been done since it was European University Alliances were launched first in 2019. So basically, European University Alliances are transnational alliances between higher education institutions with the aim to develop a strategic cooperation at the level of education, but also promoting research and innovation. So by developing this strategic and sustainable cooperation, European University Alliances aim to, on the one hand, improve the competitiveness of higher education institutions in Europe, and on the other hand, promoting European values and an identity. Yeah, these alliances can include all types of higher education institutions, from research universities, university colleges, universities of applied sciences, universities of technology, and so on. But they also work together with partners from outside the educational field, which is the case of the private sector, including SMEs and startups, but also the local, regional, and national public authorities, civil society organizations, and a very broad range of different actors. Yeah? So these European universities develop and implement an integrated joint strategy for education, but also with links to research and innovation that we will see today here in the presentation. So to achieve this, basically, they use joint management and governance structures and are building on a different kind of resources: human resources, data and services, finances, administration, infrastructure, etc. So the ultimate expected result from university alliances is to enable access to high quality and inclusive education, as well as research and innovation, of course, in line with the current digital and green transitions, yeah, while giving an answer to societal challenges. So Through these alliances, students can also get a degree by combining studies in several European countries. Next slide, please. So the European Universities Initiative has been developed through cooperation between higher education institutions, student organizations, national governments, and the support of the European Commission. And as a result, the initiative is now really an integral part of the Erasmus Plus 2021-2027 program. So everything started in 2017, only 6 years ago, when the European Council called for the emergence of European universities in its Council conclusions. Actually, there is ambition to reach 60 European universities by mid-2024. So in 2018, the European Commission launches the first call for proposals that results in 17 first European universities selected and running in 2019. Then in 2020, we had another call for proposals with a total of 41 European universities being active. And 2022 is particularly an important year because the European Strategy for Universities is adopted, and also the Council conclusions on the European Strategy for Universities. So up to date, we have 50 European universities running, active, since the very first two pilots in 2009 and 2019, with the goal, as I mentioned earlier, of reaching 60 European universities involving more than 500 higher education institutions by mid next year. The Commission is working now on the investment pathway for the European universities in the future. A call for proposals are foreseen in 2026 and 2027, with the goal to ensure sustainable funding for the alliances in the future, I mean, up to 2028, 2029. Next slide, please. So the main source of financial support for European universities comes through Erasmus Plus. But on top of this, we have funding for research and innovation coming from Horizon 2020. We have also national or regional funding schemes. I mean, funding coming from ERDF, from structural funds, from next generation funds, and so on. And we also have other relevant EU funding resources or funding resources, for example, those coming from the private sector, right? So far, just to give you some figures, the Commission has invested nearly 675 million euros. You can see there that nearly 600 million euros comes from Erasmus, plus more than 80 million coming from Horizon 2020 for the 50 university alliances that we have active so far. But the thing is that the good news here is that there is more funding on the way. So under the budgetary period 2021-2027 of the Erasmus Plus program, 1.1 billion euros are assigned to European universities, which means that there is still, through Erasmus Plus, a significant amount of funding available for European universities until the end of the program, right? So this means that there are European universities that have got more than 20 million so far. If we consider the first pilot, the second pilot, then the third call for proposal, granting up to 40 million euros plus, funding coming from Horizon 2020 for the swaps related projects, and even funding coming from the EIT through the Hey Innovate initiative. So that means that since 2019, a significant amount of resources have been deployed, to get the European universities rolling out. Next slide, please. So complementing the Erasmus Plus action, in 2020, 3 years ago, the Commission launched through the work program Science with and for Society, of Horizon 2020, one coordination action, which was titled the Support for the Research and Innovation Dimension of European Universities. And basically, what the Commission wanted to do through this call was to reinforce the research and innovation dimension of the European universities. So basically, using European universities as a pilot to test, on the one hand, the exploration of support for institutional transformation in universities' research and innovation dimension, also in synergy with their education mission. You know, the idea was to bridge or to get closer the European research area and the European higher education area, and on the other hand, to implement actions that facilitate synergies between Erasmus Plus and Horizon Europe. Next slide, please. So this call was very specific in the sense that it was targeted to the 41 European alliances selected in Pilot 1 and Pilot 2. So we had 17 European universities selected in 2019. We had 27 European universities selected in 2022, which makes up a total of 41 alliances. So this call with 82 million euros was targeted to those 41 alliances, and it was launched in 2 pilots, right? So a total of 39 university alliances were selected. One of them is the Train for You, of course, which belongs to Pilot 1, with the idea, you know, of defining this institutional transformation agenda to reinforce the research and innovation dimension of the alliances. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the main goal of this coordination and support action was to reinforce research and innovation angle of the European University. And for this action, this action was very clear and required institutions to develop an institutional transformation agenda. And that agenda should work across 7 action areas that you can see there. And actually they are called transformation modules, right? So we have first transformation module, which is developing a common agenda, a common research and innovation agenda, you know, on a specific research and innovation topics, you know, to foster collaboration among researchers on those topics within the alliances, and of course an action plan for that agenda to be implemented in practice terms. A second area to work on, which was resources and infrastructures. The sharing of resources and infrastructures it's a particular complex issue and involves clear guidelines and agreements for sharing, as well as protocols and platforms to find that access to infrastructures. A third area, which was strengthening human capital, and this area has its core at the researcher. I mean, the aim of this area is that researcher talent is nurtured, rewarded, and recognized, and researchers are offered the opportunity to follow effective career paths. So it's very much a focus on researchers' career path. We have a fourth area here, which is the topic of today's presentation, which is reinforcing cooperation with the non-academic sectors, and especially in terms of academia business collaboration. And this area is interconnected, I would say, with the area on strengthening human capital, due to the fact that when we seek to strengthen, when we pursue to strengthen human capital, it is important that academic job performance is looked at a more holistic way. And that means not only concerning research and teaching activities, but also including recognition for cooperation with the business, as well as outreach to society. We have a fifth area, which is mainstreaming open science practices. And you know that here open science is already since 2018 a major policy priority for the European Commission, and is being realized mainly via project funding and guidelines in Horizon Europe, especially under the European Open Science Cloud. We cannot, of course, forget engagement with the citizens and society, while linking academia with citizens. Universities are at important different development stages and very different levels of readiness for public engagement. And last but not least, the exploration of joint structures for common barriers and best practices, which means that one of the main purposes of European universities as well is to explore joint structures, whether that is at the research, management, human resources, or research infrastructures level. Next slide, please. So after 4 years of the launch of the first European universities, I think that we have sufficient evidence of how things are going in terms of engagement with non-academic sectors. There are several studies conducted by different commission services, which is the case also of the European Research Executive Agency. You might be familiar with a progress report that we published in May this year, analyzing the progress of the first pilot of SWAF's European universities. So far, after 4 years, I think that we have, and taking into account that most of the 39 SWAF's projects are coming to an end, and this is the case also of the Train for You, we have a sufficient evidence that give us a lot of information about main challenges that the European universities are facing when interacting with the non-academic sectors, and also feedback for us to propose some recommendations on how to foster this collaboration. Yeah. So here you have some of the main challenges that we have identified in relation to cooperation between European universities and non-academic sectors. To start with, we have some territories that have a poor business landscape, and this can really limit the cooperation with universities. That could be, for instance, the case of universities not close to urban areas, or universities located in rural or mountainous areas, for instance, where this business landscape has a different features, and this limit really the cooperation between actors. We also have dissimilar organizational structures, priorities, and definitions of key concepts between partners, and this can create an imbalance in priorities and resource allocation, and lead to challenges, of course. So in dealing with this, the alliances basically all agree that open communication and sensibility are key, so that they keep building upon the basis of trust and collective benefit. We also have differences in the management of knowledge transfer processes between universities, and the functions of research and innovation management personnel, whether these are technology transfer offices professionals or academic representatives, so need to be better defined, I would say, and applied to the networking within the innovation ecosystem. There is sometimes a lack of support for stakeholder engagement at national level, while the cooperation with commercial partners or companies is regulated in all countries. But actually, there are no regulations on stakeholder engagement in many countries regarding cooperation with non-commercial partners. And such is the case, for example, of non-governmental organizations or citizens, And this is, of course, a challenge that needs to be overcome. In the specific case of this coordination and supported action, it is clear that the funding granted through this SWAF's call for proposals is not directed to research support, I would say, right? So difficult enough, to encourage new collaborative research between academics, but even more difficult when trying to persuade them to co-create or co-develop with the non-academic actors. There is no money for research. This is money for coordination. So how can I encourage my researchers, through the SWAF's action to collaborate with the non-academic sector, right? When it comes to the development of co-creative activities with industry, for example, in many academic institutions, there is a fear to be dominated by the business interests, and this is, for example, the case when these activities are highly dependent on a single industrial partner. We have cases of universities that have, cooperation agreements with big industrial partners, and there could be researchers could be reluctant or have a fear of being dominated by this industrial sector. In terms of absorptive capacity, we have that the situation for cooperation with industry differs quite a lot among universities in different alliances. So depending on the region or country, we have differences regarding the presence or dominance of industries. We have sectors represented, and we have different average of size of companies. So that means that those industrial ecosystems have a different absorptive capacity, and that influence, of course, in the cooperation with universities. We also have the thing that many universities come together in order to build an alliance with very diverse partners in terms of geographical location, nature, size, research and innovation capacities. That means that this diversity between universities in a certain alliance is an asset. Of course, it is an asset because they are complementary, but this also means that aligning strategies between universities in a single in a certain alliance is not easy, and that can hamper also the cooperation with the non-academic sector. And just to conclude, to mention the fragmentation of knowledge in partner universities. So there's still silos, also at management level in European universities. We have a project, European project offices, we have knowledge transfer offices, we have technology transfer offices. Sometimes, internally, that makes it not easy, to cooperate and to have the same vision towards cooperation with the industrial sector. And in more traditional universities, for instance, there is still an insecurity about how to approach the non-academic sector. So these are the main challenges that we have identified. Next slide, please. But upon these challenges, we also dare to propose certain recommendations. So, for example, how can we improve engagement with non-academic actors then? So most alliances state, for example, that career paths should not be limited only to a combination of research and teaching activities within the academic environment. Many alliances call for the recognition of cooperation with non-academic actors, and researchers should be recognized with that. That means that could be an incentive for academic staff to participate in initiatives under the alliances with the non-academic sector, if that is recognized in their career path. So that would be a first recommendation. A second recommendation would be to keep fostering entrepreneurship in two main directions. In the direction of promoting startup and spin-off activities in universities, and also in the direction of creating synergies with investors, accelerators, incubators, and other corporate entrepreneurship activities. Another recommendation would be that alliances should seek to develop synergies with other European funding beyond Erasmus Plus or Horizon 2020. And here we're talking about ERDF, for example, structural funds, and also Next Generation EU. So the thing here would be to leverage funding streams, together with Erasmus Plus and Horizon 2020 or Horizon Europe, even considering funding from the private sector. Another recommendation would be that we believe that more effort are needed to support interconnections between research, education, and innovation. And actually, this was the goal of the SWOF SWAF's call for proposals, which is, reinforcing those interlinks between education, research, and innovation. Um, SWAFs won't be continued in the future, but that doesn't mean that there won't be any resources available for reinforcing research and innovation dimension of the European universities. For example, we could keep an eye to the excellent initiative of universities under the Wider Award program, and another pilot that we will launch in the work program 2024. Next slide, please. Another potential area of improvement is collaboration with public authorities. In the way of why not to call for a condition of funding explicitly outlining the call for proposal or a specific activity or outcome expected under each project. That means that, calling in the call for proposals, or asking the call for proposals to cooperate with non-academic actors could be also an element that could trigger more collaboration between the academia and non-academic sector. In terms of communication and dissemination around the European universities, this is something that, although they are visible because there is a lot of visibility work done already, but this could be improved, and to ensure that at local level, local stakeholders understand the potential and the role of European universities. Yeah. Sometimes I've got the impression that the European universities are more known at European level than at local level. So there is a need, to really, even within the same universities, certain universities, okay, they don't even, many people within the universities, they don't even know what the University European is about. So more communication and dissemination effort is needed around the European universities at local level. Another interesting element here, and just approaching to the final of my presentation, is to encourage closer link with the smart specialization strategies, of the territories where the European universities are linked. At the end of the day, what we want also with the European universities is to give answer to certain societal challenges and to have a direct impact on the local ecosystem. And that means that should there be an alignment between the European universities mission and also the smart specialization strategies, which can also enable maybe the deployment of other funding streams coming, for example, from ERDF or Next Generation, etc., etc. A major challenge relates to differences between the EU member states. So between national rules and regulations, we have different national rules and regulations, which can limit also the possibilities for joint programs and academic initiatives. We know that education, at the end of the day, it's a national competency. Yeah, we may give recommendations from a European level, but when it comes to define joint programs and academic incentives, national rules or regulations could be a barrier. Yeah. Just to give you an example on that, it's just thinking of a European degree, for instance. It's not an easy task. I mean, European universities are working on that, in that direction, but it's not that easy, mostly because of national and national rules and regulations. And just to finish, we encourage to the reinforcement of interdisciplinarity of projects. Again, fostering collaboration of stakeholders in different sectors or academic domains, and also the inclusion of a wider range of local stakeholders that can benefit from international collaboration around the theme. And next slide, just to conclude, I would like to leave here for you some references that can be useful. So we have a progress of a University Alliances Projects report that we published from REA in 2023, where also Train for You is included in this report. It's an assessment of the progress report of University Alliances SWAF's projects pilot 1. We have a very interesting study published this month by the JRC about the role of European universities in their territorial innovation ecosystems. And just to conclude, 3 fresh from the OVN reports published also this month on the assessment of Horizon 2020 support to the European University initiatives, and also about the European Excellence Initiative that I really would like you to pay attention to. So that's everything from my side. Thanks very much. I'm sorry if I think that I went a little bit out of time,
Yes.
but a
Thank
lot
you
of
so much.
information. Thanks very much. Thank you.
It was very interesting. Thank you, Jorge, for giving us the
Yes.
framework challenges as well as recommendations for the SWAFS project within the not only for EU plus alliances, but all European alliances. And it set the scene for the following of the webinar and as well of our Train for You project. Thank you so much. Now the floor will be given to Manon Prado, policy officer also of the European Commission, but for the DG Research and Innovation. Marion, floor is yours, and if you can stick to the 10 minutes, it would be really great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will do my best, Sabine, I promise. Bonjour à tous, good morning to all. It's a pleasure to present in this webinar. So thanks for having me and for letting me build on the presentations from Mr. Fique and from Jorge. So I will provide you an insight on what's happening at policy level rather. So we are working on a code of practice on industry-academia co-creation for knowledge valorization. So I will start by giving you a little bit of background, then I will dive into the structure and the recommendations of the code of practice. So next slide, please. So we will start by setting the scene with a couple of definitions. What do we mean by knowledge valorization? So that is the process of creating social and economic value from knowledge. That's essentially what Mr. Fique said. So it's the transfer of knowledge to the economy and to society. So we are speaking the same language. The next, so this slide has several definitions. If you hit next, you will see, yes, thank you. So by industry academia co-creation, we refer to the process of joint production and valorization of knowledge between industry, research actors, and possibly other stakeholders like civil society representatives and so on. And by academia, we have a broad approach. We mean universities and other higher education institutions, research and technology organizations, and other public research organizations. So that goes under the umbrella academia when I will refer to academia for this code. Next slide, please. So one of the actions of the European Research Area Action Plan was to upgrade the EU guidance for better knowledge valorization. So in 2008, the Commission published a recommendation which was addressed to RNI actors, and the topic was intellectual property management and knowledge transfer activities. And of course, since 2008, there were a lot of changes in the research and innovation ecosystem at European level, but also at national level. And so we conducted several consultations, and we saw there was a need to upgrade the guidance. And that's essentially why we proposed for the Council to adopt a recommendation on the guiding principles for knowledge valorization. And the Council adopted this recommendation on the 2nd of December last year. So that's the first anniversary of our guiding principles. And the aim with this policy document was to provide a common line for policymakers on knowledge valorization. And we have 7 guiding principles, which range from improving peer learning to skills investment. And we have several channels of knowledge valorization. One of these channels is industry academia co-creation, which I will dive into, but we also have other channels like intellectual assets management or standardization. And this year, in March, we adopted 2 codes of practice with the aim to accompany the guiding principles, so to provide recommendations, rather concrete recommendations to practitioners, so really more at stakeholder level and not at policymakers level this time, to help them, to accompany them in their research and innovation activities. So these are the 2 codes that I mentioned on this slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. So now we have 2 codes of practice, 2 additional codes of practice in the pipeline. One of them is on citizen engagement. The other one is on industry academia co-creation for knowledge valorization. Next slide, please. So the objective, very briefly, but I already mentioned it, is to help the implementation of the guiding principles. So to provide these concrete recommendations to practitioners and to have to foster this the creation of this enabling environment to help establish these models, these interactive models, to support co-creation between industry, academia, collaboration, to rely on intermediaries, on digital platforms, also to better link the supply and the demand for innovation. And essentially what we aim to do with this code of practice, but with our general policy on knowledge valorization, is to build more connections and co-creation between research and innovation actors. And the idea is really to strengthen this ecosystem, this European ecosystem. So I think it fits very nicely in the aim of today's webinar, but in general with the mission, the vision of the 4EU Plus Alliance. Thank you. So, okay, very briefly, how we developed this code of practice. So the idea is, okay, if we are doing a code of practice on co-creation, let's co-create. So we established a community of practice, which ran from March to June 2023. And the idea was to hear from practitioners on the ground, from actors, to explain what were their needs in order for us to build this fit-for-purpose guidance document. Then, based on what the input we received from the stakeholder community of practice, we created a draft code, which then had to be shaped into a commission recommendation. So that's the format of the code of practice. And we had several other consultations to give another chance to more stakeholders to give their input on the document. Now we are conducting this internal process. So we are aligning with different services, making sure that we all agree on the text and that it has all the right elements to be actually meaningful and not to just stay on the shelf. And we foresee the adoption by the Commission early next year, ideally in February, maybe it could be March, but Q1, so first semester for sure. Next slide, please. Right, so the structure of the code of practice. Essentially, okay, keep in mind that the code is work in progress. So it could be that there are some adjustments and that the structure changes a little bit, but essentially it should revolve around these two pillars. The first one focuses on creating an enabling environment for industry academia co-creation. So here we look into considerations such as strategic elements to approach industry academia co-creation, to embed it in the strategy of the organization. We also look at the skills and lifelong learning, so necessary for industry academia collaborations, networking and communication. So best way to do this kind of to support this kind of collaboration. And the second pillar is more focusing on the knowledge valorization element. So how to improve knowledge valorization from these industry academia co-creations. And here we have several elements. We look into the conditions for thriving partnerships, including intellectual asset management considerations, how to involve intermediaries, assessing the outcomes, the value created, the impact, how to improve knowledge valorization from industry academia activities. And in the next slide, I will dive a little bit more in the first part, but very briefly. So as I mentioned here, we want to look at how to create this enabling environment. And of course, as mentioned, embedding industry academia co-creation in the strategy of the organization is an essential element, but we also need to raise awareness on what are the mutual benefits of these activities. Why should people engage in these activities, and what are the value creation opportunities? Linked to that, of course, providing incentives for staff to participate in these co-creation activities is important. And so is investing in developing the right skills and providing lifelong learning opportunities to enhance these activities of co-creation between industry and academia. And finally, networking, communication, relationship building. So I think here I'm speaking to the right audience. That's essentially one of the aims of this alliance. Let's look at the next slide. So here we are looking at the second pillar of the code of practice more in detail. Here we look into elements that are a little bit more let's say, elements that tend to the very activity that we are looking at. So for example, the first part looks at this joint industry-academia partnership framework, because you need to take this into consideration when engaging in such activities. You need to think in advance what are the elements that you want to address, what is the goal, how you will handle intellectual asset management considerations, this type of thing. Then we also want to provide some recommendations regarding the role of intermediaries, so how to rely on intermediaries to manage these long-term co-creation activities and how to make them sustainable. We also touch upon how to promote the outcomes of the industry-academia co-creation activities, so how to valorize the knowledge that arises from this type of activity. And then we also touch upon elements like the pooling of resources and how to engage in joint infrastructures where possible, as this is also one way to engage in this type of activity. And finally, assessing the outcomes, the value created and the impact, because you have this objective in the beginning. So then it's also important to look into whether this was achieved or not. And that's also important to build on that for envisaging more activities. It's okay, we can go to the next slide, thank you. So that's it in the nutshell about the code of practice. I think I mentioned this point that it's a work in progress, so the document is not final. What I presented is the direction we are going into regarding the content, but it might evolve a little bit as we are now finalizing the document. And the plea is, of course, that alliances such as yours has a key role to play. Once we publish these documents, once we adopt it, we want to raise awareness on its content. And of course, we would be very happy if you help us in this endeavor. So speaking about awareness raising, I would just like to mention a couple of elements and then I will be done with the presentation. So next slide, please. We currently have an awareness raising campaign rolling out. And the objective of this awareness raising campaign is to disseminate the guiding principles that I mentioned in my very first slide and the codes of practice that we have adopted and that we are about to adopt. So what we do is that we have this tour de capitale, so sort of a roadshow. We go to member states, to interested member states, we organize an event with them and we speak to the national stakeholder base, and we try to see how our recommendations fit into the national or local context, and also what are the challenges, the opportunities, because it varies a little bit from one member state to another. We haven't had an event in France yet, so we'll be very happy to have one. And we had so far 6 events, one in Greece this week where I will present another code of practice, and we have many more coming up next year. But France is not yet on the list. And we also had an event in Brussels. We will have several more events where we will also speak to stakeholders at European level. And we have organized one last month with 6 sessions. One of the sessions was looking into best practices in industry academia co-creation and how to leverage open innovation to improve circular economy. So we try to attach the concept of knowledge valorization to something more concrete because it's a horizontal policy. So it's important to link it to concrete elements. And next slide, please. So also would like to mention our EU knowledge valorization platform, which I think will be very interesting for you to have a look at for the audience of the webinar, because we have a repository of best practices there. So these success stories that you will hear today, I'm very sure that some of them would fit in our repository. So I invite you to have a look and to submit best practices if you would like to. We have 115 cases so far from 29 countries. We also have launched a newsletter in September. The next edition of the newsletter will be coming out beginning of next year. So that's one way to keep up to date with policy developments, best practices, anything relevant about knowledge valorization. So I believe that was my next slide, unless, yes, that was the last one. So thank you very much once again for having me. I look forward to listening to the great success stories you have after this. I cannot stick around for too long, but I will try to stay for another hour. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manon, for this presentation and setting the scene related to the structure and recommendation for better knowledge valorization within the ERA framework. It is very important for us as an alliance to see in some parts that we seem in the right tracks and how to refine even better our strategy. And I have noted that maybe we could organize something in France, and we keep in touch for that. Thank you for all our participants of the first session. Maybe we have time for 1 or 2 questions, and then we should move on because we are quite a bit late. Johan, do we have some questions?
No.
Okay, so let's move on to the second part, and let's thank all our speakers again. It's very important to us to have the Commission last view about the framework of the ERA, because, of course, innovation and research and innovation are very important within our alliance. So the second part is dedicated to success stories in pairs, academics and industry. And we'll start with Mr. Gulda, who is CEO of the Technological Transfer Office from University of Warsaw, one of our partners. And this office is dedicated to the creation and commercialization of spin-offs. And Gulda will present the Explore RNA Therapeutic, that is a laboratory of chemical, biology, and biophysical chemistry. And Gulda, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Bonjour. Shall I? Oh, okay. It's already a presentation on the screen. Okay, let me introduce myself again, because in fact, I'm the CEO of the company, which is fully owned by the Warsaw University, the company which is the name UWRC, which is the so-called special purpose vehicle, the company which is fully owned by the university in purpose to support researchers in their journey to start a spin-off startup activity. And the topic for today is to present the Explorna Therapeutics, which is one of the startup companies, one of the spin-off companies established by researchers from our university. So in fact, here today, I'm on behalf of the founder, the main founder, and the CEO of the Explorna Therapeutics company, the Professor Jacek Jemility, who is the professor of the Warsaw University, the head of the bioorganic chemistry laboratory, which is at the Center for New Technologies of Warsaw University. And the Professor Jemility is also the founder and the CEO of the Explorna Therapeutics. I have also this privilege that I'm still working for the Center for Technology and Knowledge Transfer of Warsaw University. I was the first, in fact, 24 years ago, I was the first staff member of the center. So there's also the kind of the institutional memory in my head about the establishment and the process of development of the Technology Transfer Center. And I hope that in my short presentation, there will be many, many thoughts which will resonate what was just said by 2 presenters before me about this valorization of knowledge. If I may ask for the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. Before we deep dive into the Explorna Therapeutics and the specificity of this company, just a brief description of the ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem of Warsaw University. We call it the University Commercialization Triangle because there are 3 major units. I have already named 2 of them. The Center for Technology and Knowledge Transfer was in fact established in 1998. So we celebrated just a few weeks ago, we celebrated 25th anniversary of establishment of the center. And the major goal and purpose, the task of the center is to manage university IP. So everything what is related to the support for university staff, researchers, students, inventors, whatever we call them, from the very beginning, from the start of the activity in the laboratory through the process of the patent application and the representation of the university on the front of the patent office, the national patent office or European patent office. That's the role of the technology transfer center. Moreover, they also implementing all these activities related to scouting and brokering of technologies. So they are, in fact, this intermediary body between the university and the external outside academia world. They are looking for partners. They are looking for how to really valorize the knowledge, the results from the university research on the market. We call also that we call technology transfer also as a place where the commercialization strategy is implemented, and the technology transfer office is fully responsible for so-called direct commercialization, which is selling or licensing university IP. Then in 2013, the company named UWRC, the company which I had the privilege to be the CEO, was established, and the company is fully owned by the university. And according to Polish legal framework, according to Polish law on higher education, this is the only way how the university can be engaged in the spinning of processes. This is the only way how university can take shares in the new spin-off startup companies. So as we call it, we are responsible for this indirect commercialization, so support for researchers and students in setting up spin-off companies. And obviously, this is not only the formal support, this is much more beyond this. We are trying to help these people, researchers, in developing their business models. We are mentoring them in some sense. We are supporting them in negotiations, in market entry. So we are this, let's say, external arm of the university on the market already, or being active on the market as an intermediary. And last but not least, the university incubator was established in 2018, which is more the educational vehicle to allow students and researchers to develop their entrepreneurial skills and support projects from the very early stage, from idea closer to business. So they are focusing on a number of different trainings, workshops, context, hackathons. This is more activity to activate, to make more engaged university community staff and students into this activity. So the next slide, please. So what is the mRNA? Why is it so important, and what is so unique about the spin-off company, the Explorna Therapeutics, in that sense? This is quite advanced biochemistry. I'm not an expert in this. I'm just going to give you a very, very brief understanding what it's about. Every cell in our organism is able to, in the process of transcription, to create an mRNA, which is in fact the temporary set of instructions for other cells to make proteins. So each cell is able to the process of transcription to create these instructions, and then in the process of translation, the mRNA give an instruction to another cell to create new proteins. The next slide, please. It sounds relatively easy, but if we imagine the potential, which is if we can manipulate this instruction, if we can provide the new information, that sounds very promising, and it creates, in fact, the platform for development of completely new generation of mRNA-based drugs, which can deliver a defined generic message into the cell to produce any kind of protein. And we can design this process, we can influence this process. It sounds as something very natural and very obvious, and our organism, every cell in our organism is a beautiful, excellent machinery to produce these proteins. But the problem is that if you want to implement this process with some new artificial elements, it's not so easy. Next slide, please. And that is the reason for this, is that certain elements, certain regions of this mRNA consist the information about coding of the new proteins, but there are other parts, other elements of mRNA which were the information about stabilization and the methods for generation of this information is coded. And the important element is to manipulate not only on this coding part, but also to manipulate on these elements which are called the caps, mRNA caps, and in particular the 5' end or this poly-A tail are extremely important because they are responsible for stabilization of mRNA. If we want to use the mRNA as a drug and we want to produce it externally outside of our organism and provide it to the organism as a medicine, it has to be stable and it has to be, from the biological point of view, they have certain characteristics which are very hard to implement. And that's the competitive advantage of the Explorna therapeutics. The researchers who were engaged in that in the team for quite a long time in the research in that area, they were able to develop innovative solutions that improve the mRNA as a therapeutic modality in all these areas and beyond, which means that they created a platform, the technology which is a platform for an enormous number of different possible new drugs or new therapeutic methods. If I may ask for the next slide. Yeah, there's a variety of different options, and obviously from the very beginning, the Explorna Therapeutics is not able to develop and to deliver medicines in all these areas. So as a first, they put in target the cancer immunotherapies. So what they are doing now, they are developing new new types of these caps, or they are able to modify these caps in the way to stabilize the mRNA and modify the coding part of the mRNA to translate the information about these new proteins into the cells, targeting different cancers. But obviously, this kind of discovery does not happen overnight. If I may ask for the next slide. In the next two slides, I'm going to tell you a short story, which is not in fact the story of research, but this is the story of commercialization of this research. But it's I think quite important to understand that it took some time before the company was established, because the research activity, the research team of biochemists, biophysicists at Warsaw University was working for almost 20 years in that area. And the first commercial results were patented in 2007 and 2008. There was some technologies related to some other methods of stabilizing or giving the new characteristics of this mRNA caps. They were called the S-ARCA and B-ARCA. It's not so important at the moment to go into the technical and the scientific details. But what is important that the process from the patenting, the first discoveries took place almost 20 years ago, and then for another several years, the commercialization process was driven by the Louisiana State University, the American partner of Warsaw University, and they had much stronger position and the capacity to run these negotiations, to be an active partner in the commercialization process. In 2007 and 2008, At Warsaw University, this technology transfer center was on the early stage of development, and it was even the time that the patent attorney, in fact, was not the staff of the technology transfer office. So this activity was quite, unfortunately, disaggregated, something what was already mentioned as one of the barriers in this commercialization processes. So in that time, the leader of the commercialization and negotiation was the Louisiana State University. And finally, the great success, the milestone of this commercialization process happened in 2011 when the license agreement with BioNTech. You probably all know the BioNTech name because of their role in the development of these vaccines for COVID-19. So they were able to raise money, to find money, to develop the technology to the stage, which allowed them in 2015 and 2016 to sign first license agreements between BioNTech and big pharma companies like Sanofi and Genentech, which was, again, a success for the LSU and Warsaw University, because it was a kind of license agreement where still universities, both universities, could benefit from this. And later on, if I may ask for the next slide, and later on, we're coming to the moment where the new generation of patents discoveries were developed, and it was a chance to patent the two new patents related to this 5' end cap of and its analog, which is this most modern approach to stabilize the mRNA particle. So in the meantime, there was still negotiations and different commercializations processes run by BioNTech, but because of the great change in the university environment and also in an access to financial resources, private and public, in Poland, the team run by Professor Jacek Emility, and the initial founders are presented here. There are professors from Warsaw University and from Medical University of Warsaw. Most of them are alumni from the Department of Chemistry, some of them from the Department of Physics, some of them from the Medical University. So they have a combination and the kind of interdisciplinary team. So they decided not to go through this direct commercialization path, but they decided to set up the company. And the new company was established in 2019. And that was the moment when UWRC was part of that process. We were co-founders of the company with 9% of shares, and we supported the team in organization of the company and in the first negotiations. So we played a quite important role to organizing the spin-off company. Quite soon later, they received the first grant from the National Center for Research and Development, and they can start to develop the technology in the company. Obviously, there was the moment there they need much more than just a grant. So they started the negotiations with the private investor, and they succeeded quite quickly, and they signed an agreement with the Black Forest Fund, which is the fund managed by one of the wealthiest Polish entrepreneur, and he committed for more than 50 million zlotys for several years for further development of the company. Quite recently, another success was to receive the quite prestigious grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But focusing for a while, for the company, the mission of the company is to deliver mRNA technologies to revolutionize future therapies and prevention of many diseases. And they have this ambition to start the research process within the company in collaboration with the university. So to invent, to develop, to manufacture, and apply these new solutions for the benefit of the pharmaceutical sector, but obviously also for the society to improve people's life. So that's the story in the nutshell. I have tried. Yeah, please move on to the next slide. I have tried to collect several success factors which might help in the discussion or implementation of the similar model in other contexts, in the context of other universities. And absolutely on the first place, I put this message that we need the cutting edge research teams and laboratories and the friendly environment for this research development and commercialization process. And I think what happened over years, over 25 years of experience of the technology transfer office at Warsaw University, that we were able to integrate on the strategic and on the operational level technology transfer processes, this direct commercialization and indirect commercialization. So the team of the technology transfer office works, in fact, hand in hand. We are working as one big team with the arm in the university and outside the university. So we can play both internally and externally. There's no doubt that in the meantime, also the favorable legal and financial conditions appeared in Poland. As I said, this activity of technology transfer offices and the activity of the special purpose vehicles, the companies which are representing university in this spin-offs. This is defined and designed and defined by law. Another element which I think it's a kind of the must. It must be in place. There are clear and transparent rules of IP management at the university. Every researcher must be aware, and the whole administrative structures has to be aware how to manage these processes. What are the obligations? What are the privileges? And in fact, what we created here at the university is the very, very favorable position for researchers, because they can benefit both if they are authors of scientific research which are patented. They can benefit from direct commercialization, having an access to 50% of the income from the direct commercializations. But on the other hand, if they are engaged in the spinning off process and they are taking shares and they are founders of the spin-off companies, they can benefit from the growth of value of the company. And just as an example, after the third round of investment, Explorna Therapeutics is valued on the level of 200 million zloty, which is roughly 60 million euro, which is still far from being unicorn in the global scale, but I'm sure that in the short term they can be evaluated on the level of 1 billion Polish zlotys. So that might be the kind of the Polish unicorns. So in fact, it summarizes everything what I wanted to say. Just the next slide, which is the very last, is just to show you that this is not a unique example. This is at the moment we are the most proud about the Explorna Therapeutics. This is our flagship project. There is no doubt about this. But a spinning off activity is something almost routine at the moment. So since establishing of UWRC, we were engaged in setting up 32 university spin-offs, and still we have 22 in our portfolio. And all these, which are more in black here on the slide, there are spin-offs which in the same time are licensee of the IP from the university. So that's the way how we are activate, in fact, and we are bringing to the market a university IP, implementing them into the university spin-offs. Thank you so much. I hope it was interesting for you and inspiring, and it's resonating what was said in the morning session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this really exciting success story and this summary of success factors. Sorry. Yes, it's very inspiring. And now I will give the floor to Thibaut Chandanzon, who is the Research and Development Director of SpineGuard, who is a dynamical surgery guidance technology company, which goal is to establish surgical guidance technology for the care of secure and streamlined skeletal implant placement. So,
thank you, Sabine.
Thibaut, yes, you're here.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction. I'll repeat myself a little bit, but yes, Thibaut Chandanzon, R&D Director at SpineGuard. We are a small company based in Paris, France. Thanks for the invitation. Today, I'll share this presentation with Guillaume Morel, which I believe is connected as well. Maybe Guillaume, you want to say hello?
Hello.
Yes.
I am sharing the slides currently.
Guillaume Morel is director of the ISIR Institute at Sorbonne University.
Yeah, do
you,
you see the slides?
Yes, it works. Okay, let's go. I think you can move to the next slide. So first, a few words maybe on the company, on our technology. We are a medical device company. We design and develop smart surgical instruments for spine surgery. And for those who are not familiar with spine surgery, it's a very sensitive surgical approach. And the gold standard is to insert implants into the vertebra. The goal is to treat pathologies such as scoliosis or disc disease, but it's a very risky operation, and the surgeon has to target a very small part of the anatomy and avoid spinal cord and nerves. So this is where our technology, this is where we provide an help because we have smart instruments with a sensor at the tip that can both drill and measure the conductivity of the tissue at the same time. And there is a significant difference in terms of conductivity between the various types of tissue that you can encounter during the drilling. And this is where our technology could help because it guides and it helps the surgeon during the drilling to prevent any bone breach, to prevent any damage to the spinal cord, for example. So it really improves the accuracy of the surgical flow, and it also reduces the need for radiation, reducing the amount of X-ray. It's really an help for the surgeon to perform spine surgery. Next slide, please, Guillaume. So that's in a nutshell. It's a bit difficult to summarize spine surgery, but it was just to give a bit of context on what we did as a company. We developed those instruments and commercialized them for a while now. We've been out for a little bit more than 15 years. We have performed 100,000 surgeries worldwide. And it all started with one simple manual instrument. You can see on that slide the evolution. We now have a full range. We design different types of instruments, different architectures and different designs. And they are all based on the same principle of operation, the same technology, but that was improved over the years up until we reached a point where we had enough components and enough material to start entering into the robotic world. Next, Guillaume, please. Yes, thank you. So what was the concept? What was the idea? We have a manual instrument with a smart sensor. It's really accurate on real-time information. And on the other hand, in market, we have there are large instruments, large robot manufacturers, which have very nice platforms. They are very robust, very neat platform, but they lack some feedback loop. They lack some accuracy when it comes to knowing where the device is into the patient, when it comes to functional accuracy. And it has always been the belief at SpineGuard that we can merge those technologies and that we can integrate our smart sensing into a feedback loop with a robot. to provide even more accurate solution to the patient or to the surgeon. And this was really the idea, and this is when we started to collaborate between Sorbonne and the Easier Lab, because we were not a robotic manufacturer. Our knowledge and expertise was all about the smart sensing, the conductivity measurements of the bone tissue, but we were lacking that robotic expertise. And this is when we approached for the first time Guillaume and his team. Next. Just a couple of illustrations, and I think we'll go in more details over what we achieved in the next slides. But really, the idea, as I said, we really wanted to move to something bigger. We were lacking some knowledge and expertise, and we found out that next to our facility, the Easier Lab in Paris was really the best candidate to help us in that strategic position, entering into the robotic world. And this is where we started our very first feasibility study, really to kick off the partnership. But since we had many more forms of partnership. And I think, Guillaume, if you move to the next slide. Yeah, this is a short history of what we achieved. Maybe you want to take it over from here?
I may. So, as Thibaut said, it's now it's been a long time we've been talking together, and in this partnership, what's interesting is that the initial idea comes from the company. It's not like a research that we have done before in the lab, and we wanted to transfer. It's the contrary. So one day, a person from SpineGuard came into my office and said, "Oh, we think we have something that could work with robots, but we don't know anything about robots." And to me, it's one of the good conditions that can be identified to build a partnership. Indeed, the need from the non-academic side must be clear and must correspond to the domain of expertise of the lab. So if I come back to this slide, which is exactly the initial idea, again, it is not our idea. It is the idea of SpineGuard. But then immediately I say that it completely matched many of our own thoughts about surgical robotics. So we are a research lab with expertise in surgical robotics. And usually what we do is what's on the left, which is something that in fact resembles an industrial process. It's just like measuring the geometry of the bone, like CT scan, 3D modeling, planning of trajectories, and execution of trajectories from a geometric perspective. And it's not at all what the surgeon does. The surgeon looks the reality and feels what is happening and modify the gesture in accordance to those feelings. And when SpineGuard came with their tool that is here on the right, it was for us an opportunity to change the paradigm in medical robotics. And it indeed created like a new research problem for us. Concretely, we have here 5 different stages. The first one is we initially went for a very short, very small feasibility study. It was at least, I think, 2 months of an engineer from our lab working on trying to make a mock-up on what the system could look. And from this, SpineGuard, who is a small company and doesn't have millions to spend in research, was convinced that we could go further. So we've used next system, a French system that is CIFRE, thesis. It's a national system that is aimed at co-funding from the state PhD students that are hired by companies. And right after this, we went to submit a project at the European Union, and we got succeeded. So of course, this gave a much higher dimension to our partnership. So we extended the collaboration to some other partners in Europe, in Belgium, in Great Britain, and in Switzerland. And in fact, this very week, we are ending we are having a last integration week. So then we extended the questions that we are working on with some ultrasound sensor involved to guide the instrument of the surgery, and it's now a new CIF thesis. And we also submitted for the future years, we just submitted a project involving our two institutions in the domain of deep learning to get the data. So concretely, here are a few pictures of what we are doing. So what we are doing is that we are drilling holes into vertebrae with robots. Normally, a surgeon does that manually, but we do this with robots. And what we want to do is that whenever you plan things, you can have this trajectory, but quite often it's not extremely precise. And what is happening here is that the drill was made up to the spinal canal and just stopped here, thanks to the technology of SpineGap, the dynamic guidance. So the general idea was to get some data, like we have here an experimental system to measure the data, apply some filters and some, so we tried many different approaches to filter that signal and trying to translate that for the robot into clear instructions on what to do, and do that in a loop. And we were pretty satisfied that across all the experiments that we have made with this technology, we've been to a 100% success rate in detecting those situations where we are breaching the spinal canal. So maybe
if I may, Guillaume,
yeah.
if you go back one slide, maybe we can also add that it was really the addition of our technology with your technology, or I mean your expertise, because it's not only the dynamic surgical guidance that stops the drilling. We worked together implementing many kind of sensors and ideas and concepts.
Yeah,
you haven't mentioned force control, but your team also worked on some smart innovations that have very good potential for exploitation, that helps bringing those achieving those results of those experiments.
This is correct. I will mention that in the last slide.
Perfect. So then, if we to conclude, what does this partnership bring to SpineGuard first? So it was really ideal for us to bring innovation. Since we are working together with Sorbonne University, we have now 3 patents on that robotic applications with our technology. Those patents are shared with the CNRS and our company. We did many publications. I listed 6, but I'm not even sure it's accurate. We had many opportunities to present during congresses, podium presentations, scientific publications. Of course, it was a way for us to share and increase our expertise. I mentioned that before, we were not a robotic company, but now when we talk about robots, we know what we are doing. We know a lot of technical details, a lot of the intricacies of robotics. And I believe it was the same for Sorbonne. I hope they learned from our expertise and know-how. Of course, it was a way for us to access new technologies. It sounds maybe simple, but we didn't have a robot, and a robot is quite expensive. So it was also a way to access this technology. And for us, as a small company, it was really an ideal scenario to embark on an ambitious research program, because most of the time, companies which are doing robotics, they are like 50 plus people, but Spine-Guard is a small company of 15 people, and the R&D department is even smaller. So really ideal scenario for us to have that partnership in place. Lastly, on that list, it gives us as well a way to interact with the academic world, to step outside of the industry a little bit and really enter into the academic world, because it's a different world. So it's always interesting to be involved and part of that. And most of all, if we are doing all this, it's also because there is an industrial reason behind that. We want to go up to a commercial exploitation, and we are still working on that. It's a long and intensive process, but that's really the ultimate goal. We hope that all the research we are doing, combining low TRL technologies with more proven technology, we hope that we can come up with a commercial solution in the near future.
So, and then our last slide will be what does this partnership bring to Sorbonne University? It brings many things that are not just from the transfer side. The first thing is that it brings relevance to the research question we are addressing, because they are raised from a real problem, from a real need. And then we are certain that what we are targeting, what we are trying to solve is a real problem. And at the end of the work, we also are pushed towards realistic validation. Sometimes when we do validations in the lab, it's a matter of TRL, but going to upper TRLs brings a more demanding result validation, and it's sort of very important for the quality of the research we are doing. We also integrate questions that are not only robotics questions or technical questions, because we are working with a company and also with medical doctors. We are integrating questions pertaining to the use of the final product into the research questions. So how are we going to interface that? Is this easy to interface? And for example, we made many progress, as Thibaut mentioned, in what we call force control, which is a very classical domain in robotics, where we want the robot to be able to sense and regulate forces applied to the environment. So this is something that is widely studied, but we had challenges that we need to interact with a patient, we need to interact with a surgeon during the procedure, and those challenges pushed up towards better solutions at the state of the art in this very fundamental domain. Also, the regulatory issues are somewhat important. We gain credibility when we work with such a partner as a Spine-Guard. And I'm quite confident that we had the success in this H2020 project. And part of the nice comments we get from the reviews were that the participation of Spine-Guard looked very well integrated, because it's a real partnership. It's not just like partnerships coming from the circumstances. And this was clearly mentioned by the reviewers. We also gain credibility from the academic sides and for surgeons and for medical parts. And I want to mention that this research was given quite a prestigious prize in France, which is the Charpak-Dubousset Prize from the National Medical Academy. And because we have here in the lab and in this group, this PhD student shared between the two institutions and young surgeons working every day together and going to relevant systems. And finally, Of course, the transfer by itself is important, and is part of our missions as French university professors. It emphasized the role of academic research that we need to account for, specifically when you are doing robotics, which is a very applied area. And I could conclude that what is the point to do research, academic research in surgical robotics, if you are not intended to transfer? And indeed, if you just publish that into publications, the results of your research, there is quite a certainty that it will never be transferred, because companies need to have some, they cannot get the public ideas and work on the industrialization of that. The cost of the industrialization is very high, and if they don't possess the IP rights, and if they are not involved from the beginning of the research, it is very, very unlikely that a company will get some public results and try to make a product out of this and then to sell it, because they are not protected. So the IP and the importance of having an early collaboration is probably one of the most important things. And that's it for us.
Thank you so much, Guillaume and Thibault, for this exciting story related told in pairs. We are running, unfortunately, we are running more late. So if the following speaker could try to keep on the schedule, we would be very happy. So the next success story is will be told by Professor Blanc, who is co-founder of Basecamp Vascular, who is a company who is co-founded by Dr. Blanc, and again from the ISIR, so the lab from Intelligent System and Robotics, the same lab as the one we have just heard about, who Guillaume Morel is the head. So please, Professor Blanc.
Hello, thank you very much. I will share my screen for the presentation. Is it working? It's okay for you? You can see the screen?
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks very much. And thank you very much. It's an honor to be able to present Basecamp Vascular, or called now BCV. It was co-founded in 2016. It's a spin-off of Sorbonne University ISIR lab, as it was told, and also spin-off of the hospital where I am working is in Rothschild Foundation Hospital, also in Paris. So the purpose of this presentation is very briefly to present the technology and the company, and also share with you some of the thoughts and the experience we gain through the process of developing a company since 2016. This picture was taken very close to ISIR Sorbonne University. For those who knows it, it's Lutèce Arena, so a very old place in Paris. But and it's just to mention that it's something that is a long run, making a company, and we are still the 4 co-founders, very active in the company. We just got a fundraising, and we will discuss about that, about the necessity of being able to raise money for startup companies, and especially in the medical field. So the purpose we developed the company was to enhance the navigation inside the vessels of the body. First, for one very targeted indication, which is treating patients suffering from stroke. For that, you need to go either from the femoral artery or radial artery, so from the leg or the arm up to the brain, where there is a clot, something occluding the vessel, and people are suffering from stroke. Stroke is a very common disease, and now it's treated for a lot of part by endovascular tools. It means catheters, small tubes, or guide wires to go up to the brain and remove the clot. But it is also expanding to more indication, not only clot, but also other treatment like aneurysm of the aorta, or cancer of the liver or the prostate. And so there are a lot of applications that are treated now with minimally invasive techniques, which are endovascular. And also, as we have discussed before, there is a tendency to use more and more robotics to be more precise, more reproducible, more controlled way of performing the treatment. And Basecamp has been developed to enhance this very early phase of the procedure, which is the access phase, where you go from the introduction of the catheter in the body up to the place where you want to treat patient. And you have to be fast, reliable, safe. And this is what we want to enhance with this technology, which is an active alloy. It's nickel and titan. And you see the trick is when you put some heat in the lab, of course, this is a mock-up. When you put heat on this metal alloy, you can have a lot of deflection. And this is what we needed to control in the past years. It comes in multiple type of actuation of devices. This one is ours. It's micro electromechanical devices. You have also other type of actuation, and ISIR has a lot of expertise in this domain for many, many years. This is how the project went through. So sorry, it is in French. I had no time to convert in English, but as you see, it's a long time run, because in 2006, Jérôme, who is a colleague of Guillaume, and I met Guillaume Morel also in the lab in ISIR when I was meeting with Jérôme, we had this idea of using this nitinol, active nitinol, to make prototypes for devices. And this is the first development. So you see, it's more than 15 years ago now. Meeting with ISIR, involving other colleagues in this team, Jean-Baptiste, who is also a co-founder. He was a student in Strasbourg, and he made post-engineer school studies in ISIR for 1 year in 2013, and then became one of the leaders of the project for all the technological part. We were incorporated in 2016, but just before we had this tech transfer office technology, which is SAT, that used and the patent that was developed by Jérôme in 2009. And then we moved to the first development of the device with tests in animals. And after we had been able to go over some of the technological potential issues, especially, as you have seen, controlling the heat elevation on the device, controlling all the electronical and electrical safety issues, we were able to consider that the project was potentially able to move forward next technology readiness level, TRL, and move to some clinical and human use. So this was in 2016 that we first raised some money, co-founded the company, and moved to the next step. So you see, we are now in 2023, and the road was still long, once again, to go from early prototypes that were considered safe for clinical use, until we got this very important milestone, which was in 2022, first in human use, in my hospital last year. And now we are moving to another step, which is moving from this preliminary safety data in human to a larger scale with more clinical use, more clinical cases, better evaluation, and a lot of process to go to the next rounds. So this is the roadmap we are targeting. After this first in human, we need multiple things, mostly for a company that has raised a Series A. The next steps are to be able to demonstrate commercial proof, both in US and in EU. I put them in this order because US now has a faster regulatory process through FDA than Europe. So this is one of the potential drawbacks that are facing companies, startup companies in the medical field, being able to go through the regulatory process in Europe. It's very slowly improving, but we hope to be able in 2025 to have the devices ready for commercialization. Before that, we will need to make more patients on a clinical studies, and then next steps will be growth and moving to other indication, having newer devices, more indication. We can also apply to robotics, as we discussed, also to endoscopy, because this kind of actuation of devices is requested in many, many fields where you use catheters or endoscopes or even needles, as we have seen, where we need to have a better control of the tip and the orientation. So this is our program. So have you seen the process of getting to a prototype to a clinical use? I would say is still requesting at least 5 years, where you need to finance a company, but where you can also, on a continuous plan, make some more research with academics. And we were lucky in the past 3 years to work with 3 PhD students and making some new research that will be interesting, but will be probably interesting in, again, 3 or 5 years from now. Segmentation, automatic segmentation of DICOM images. So this is radiology image where you can segment and make some specific planning and trajectory, where you can simulate with finite element models the navigation of the device and incorporate all this into plans for robotics. So this is really the vision we have, to have a platform of devices that are electronically controlled and able to be integrated with robots and controlled, of course, with AI. But as it was mentioned by the previous speakers, you can see that it takes a long time. And what I guess is very important to understand from the academic perspective is you have different time perspectives. As a company, you need to go fast, very focused on a commercializable device. And still you can work with academics for longer term. And it is, in my opinion, very important, but it's really separate things. Another important consideration as a company is to be able to produce one device on a regulatory process, of course, but also on a large scale, meaning being able to produce multiple units at a cost that will allow for some margins, so for some potential return on interest from the economical perspective. So you have to consider all this. You need to have a strong team for developing this, and team with operation both from the industrial or R&D or prototyping part, and this is the part of all the engineers, and this is where in the network of academics and company there is a very important role of the academics for the education of those people, on the long term. But you also need, as a company, to have also other support department like manufacturing, clinical, quality and regulatory, and of course administration. So you see, it's a very, very large multidisciplinary skill team that is required. So briefly, to conclude and to discuss some of the thoughts and some of the advantage of being an academic. I am a medical doctor, so I have been trained as an academic training. Where we have a lot of advantages is I think we are able to work as a team. This is the way we work in the academic. We have a long-term vision. We are integrated already in a very regulated environment, and we have this ability to work embracing a lot of all the requirement to develop specifically one devices. So this is important, and also as a physician, as a medical doctor, being very close to how the system works, especially in the hospitals, and what are the unmet needs is extremely important. And I guess it's exactly the same as an engineer. You know all the prerequisite of the development of devices, and this dialogue in between doctors and engineers is something very important. Yet it remains something quite difficult, because you have to discuss in between medical doctors, engineers, and CEOs, people that are there with one focus, delivering a commercial device, and inside an healthcare industry that is very constrained. So you have to be, there is a lot of things that where you need to discuss all together, understand each other very in an important way to make things successful. So this is what I guess is very important from the academic perspective, and what has been demonstrated today is creating the environment where you can have education of our younger colleagues, so they learn for the future what is expected from their side when they want to go to some companies and to some commercial devices. So to conclude, well, I will repeat what I've just said, but I think it's very important to integrate those skills early on in the training of engineers or doctors or other people. These entrepreneurial skills are very important. It's also important in a career to be able to find that. I was very happy to start a company now years ago, but it has played a lot of, and it was very important in my own career to be able to see all this. And it's still ongoing, and we still have a lot of work to do. But I think the whole ecosystem and the whole network is very important to be created. And what I have seen in Sorbonne University and in France, at least, also partially in Europe, but I know that less well, is that it's really developing, and we still have a lot of improvements to do and efforts to do, but it's very exciting for the near future. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Raphael, for your inspiring talk. With the insight of the specificity on trials on patients that add some complexity, as we have seen, and time on the course of the commercialization. But thank you also for the comments on the separate timescale perspective on the research part, and about the skills needed for the young academics and the ecosystem. Now we go to another success story about moving biotech. The talk will be given in pairs with Professor Berenbaum, who is a medical doctor at Sorbonne University, and so professor of rheumatology, and is also the head of the Department of Rheumatology at Hôpital Saint-Antoine in Paris, and Revital Rattenbach, who is a PhD and CEO of the company. Please, I don't know who is starting. The floor.
Yes, we.
Francis.
Yes, I will start. First of all, I would like really to thank you for this invitation. We are very, very pleased to present to you for moving biotech, and I will tell you a story, a very short story. I'm a rheumatologist, as you said, and so I see patients suffering from osteoarthritis for now more than 30 years. And the unmet needs in the field are really dramatic, and especially for the first location, which is the knee osteoarthritis. And so the problem is that we do not have any treatment for this disease. We just have symptomatic treatment, meaning that we can decrease pain a little bit, but it's very challenging to prescribe these drugs like the NSAIDs, anti-inflammatory non-steroidal drugs, because of side effects. Paracetamol is not effective. Opioids, you know, the problems with the opioids, the dependence and all the side effects. And finally, the total knee replacement, and more than 20% of these patients still have pain after 1 year of the total knee replacement, and we do not know why. So there is a very high unmet need in the field, because as you can see on this line, when you have this kind of X-rays on the left, and anatomically what it means on the right, the consequences are very, very important. Next slide. Yes. Yes, so it doesn't move. Maybe Rovital, yeah, not for me at least. I don't know if
it moves now.
No. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. Yes, this one. Yes. So the problem is that it's very, very frequent, and this is really increasing. We had, from the Global Burden of Disease study in the last 2 months ago, the numbers, and we are now more than 500 million people around the world who are suffering from osteoarthritis. This is increasing because of the fact that people are older and older, which is right, nice, of course, but when it is with disability, it's not so nice. And the second point is that the main risk factor is obesity. And you know the problem of obesity, not only in the US, but also in Europe. And in fact, it's a worldwide problem. Next slide. And the consequences are for everybody in their life, could be private life, could be professional, and this is really a big problem all around the world. It's the first cause of disability in adults, and so we really need to have drugs, and maybe more. Next slide. Because when you have knee osteoarthritis, which could be even not only for elderly people, you see the numbers here, it could be even for 40, 50-year-old. I don't think it's so old. Next slide. The problem is that when you have knee osteoarthritis or hip osteoarthritis with walking disability, it increases mortality, more than 50% increase of mortality because of the cardiovascular events due to the sedentary lifestyle induced by the fact that you cannot walk. Next slide. And so the idea comes from the fact that we work in the lab for more than, I work in the field of osteoarthritis at the academic level for more than 20 years. I have an INSERM Sorbonne University lab, and when I was Sorbonne University 20 years ago, working in the field of the link between obesity and osteoarthritis, I was looking at the literature and find that there was a new family of drug that was really great for diabetes, so not absolutely not for osteoarthritis, but for diabetes. which is the GLP-1 analog, like liraglutide, semaglutide, and so on. And maybe you know now these drugs very well because this is used now for losing weight, anti-obesity drugs, and it's very, very popular. Maybe too popular because now there is some difficulty for the patient to get the drug because it's so prescribed. And so the idea came from the fact that on top of these anti-diabetic properties, there is also anti-inflammatory properties. I will not go into the details, but in the literature, it was 10 years ago, I was thinking that we can take advantage of the anti-inflammatory properties of this family of drugs for osteoarthritis by injecting it intra-articularly. And so this came from these studies, and I decided to look at some preliminary data, and they were very, very positive. So based on that, and this preliminary, on these first results, I go to the Sorbonne University Innovation Office, and they forward me to the TTO SAT-LUTEC. And with the SAT-LUTEC, we decided to do some additional experiment in order to be in a position to be presented to industry and the even startups or groups that could be interested by this patent. And so once it was, I think, mature enough, Revital was I didn't know Revital, of course, at this stage, and Revital came and looked at some files. So Revital.
Yes, thank you very much, Francis. So I just to give you the whole story is the beginning when I've met Francis for this project. I have my company called 4P Pharma, and 4P Pharma, the objective of 4P Pharma was to be a bridge between academia and the industry, meaning that we are developing projects that are very, very early stage, and we bring them to the clinics. And the project of Francis was one of the projects that we had, and we are still scouting for new projects from academia in 4P Pharma. And we have screened more than 400 projects, and we have today 2 projects in the clinic. So the project that that Francis just presented to you on osteoarthritis, and we have other projects on ARDS, etc. So the objective of 4P is to go to the clinic. Once we are in the clinic, we are spinning off the company with the academic partner, so with Francis in this matter, and so we have incorporated 4 Moving Biotech in 2020, at the end of 2020. Where we had the exclusive license of the first patent of Francis, and what we are developing is a first-in-class drug to change the natural course of the disease of osteoarthritis. So just to give you, as Francis said, the asset is a GLP-1 analog, is Victoza reformulated. It is injected intra-articularly in patient for osteoarthritis, and what we have shown is that in the its mechanism of action in the knee, we have shown that it is expressed in different cells of the joint, of the articular joint. So in macrophages, in synoviocytes and chondrocyte, we have shown that it has. We have confirmed the anti-inflammatory properties, and we have shown also anti-catabolic and anabolic effects of the drug. In vivo models, we have shown that it has analgesic effect, but it has also positive structural impacts on cartilage, synovial tissue, and osteophytes. So what is really, except the innovation of the GLP-1 analog in osteoarthritis, what we have also worked a lot together with Francis is the clinical part. And so what we know today and what we are proposing today is a paradigm shift in clinical success, meaning that in general, when the approved drugs for osteoarthritis, in general, they are for pain osteoarthritis. In the clinics, what is shown is that it is a single measurement of pain or function in patients, and at one single time, at 12 weeks in general. And so what we are proposing here is a very different way for clinical success, is that we are going to measure the net treatment benefit over time during all the phase 2 clinical trials. So it means that we are going to have cumulative measurement on pain, function, and structure, and over time. And this is really, really different from what has already been done and what is now ongoing on the development of osteoarthritis drugs. So there are two kinds of drugs. So you have the drugs that are called disease-modifying drugs, meaning that they are structure-modifying drugs. And this is the drugs that are developed by Novartis, for example, that was developed by Merck or by Biosplice, where they are all targeting the cartilage structure. And you have the drugs that are already in the market, so not in Europe, Zilretta, for example, which is a long-lasting corticosteroid, and you have, of course, the corticosteroid, the acute corticosteroid that are where the treatment the patients are treated with. And so what we are proposing is a symptomatic but also structure-modifying drug with an effect not only on symptoms, on pain, but also on bone, on the subchondral bone, on cartilage, and also in the long-term synovial health. So today, the first patent from Sorbonne University that was filed by Francis is already granted, and this confer the protection on all GLP-1 in GIP for osteoarthritis treatment in Europe, in Canada, in Japan, and in the US. And from this patent, and during the time where we have did all the maturation together and the development of the project, we have two new family patents. One for the regeneration of cartilage, and the second one on the formulation, which was very important for the development and for the protection of this drug. We are a company that is eager to partner with different biotechs and also with academia. And this is a partnership that we have with an Israeli company, which is an AI-based data and in silico trial modeling for using real-world data. And so what we have done with this company is that we have predicted what will be the design of our clinical trial and what will be the best responders of our clinical trial. And what we can show here is that the severe patients, when are treated with our drug for PO4, they have a delay, they are progressing very slowly, and they are the total knee replacement, which is the end of the disease somehow, is delayed by 3 years using our drug. But this is in the prediction of the in silico trial. So where we are now, so we have a phase 1 that we have just finalized the recruitment of patients. We had 32 patients divided in 4 groups. Where we have shown the primary endpoint was focused on safety, the exploratory endpoint, including pain, but in a safety standpoint. And we are expecting the full completion in Q2 2024, where we will have the report of this trial. And so now we are preparing our phase 2 trial, which will last for 13 months exactly. As I said at the beginning, we have a strategic methodology that help us to evaluate the net treatment benefit on patients. So as a first step, we measure one endpoint. At the second step, we will measure this net treatment benefit over time on, as I said, structure, function, and also the synovial structure. And at the third step, we will measure the synovial structure at 6 months, which is important to give us an overview of what is happening in terms of long-term sustained effect of the drug. So leveraging on the in silico part, leveraging on our very innovative clinical trial, what we aim to do during this phase 2b clinical trial is to, thanks to data collection and preparation and the development of the clinical trial simulation on our phase 2b, we will be able to develop, let's say, progression prognostic, which will give us the profiling of the high progressor, when we will be able to claim for an accelerated approval or for conditional approval with the EMA. So this is our, in terms of the strategic path. So we have just closed 5 million euro for this phase 2b. We aim to, we are now trying to secure non-dilutive funds from French government of 15 million. In the same time, we are also in discussion with partners for geographical licensing out in the US and also in China. And we aim to have, after this phase 2b trial, a conditional approval or an accelerated approval in the US that will, and then to start the confirmatory trial where we will be able to show the delay to total knee replacement and to show that our net treatment benefit can be a good surrogate endpoint for osteoarthritis. So finally, just to give you an overview of what we are doing. So we do think we thanks to the work that has been done in the lab of Francis Berenbaum, we have a very strong pharmaceutical background on GLP-1 that it helps us to de-risk most of our trial, meaning most of the development, even because it is an anti-inflammatory drug clinically, as it has been shown before. So we are with the innovative clinical strategy and using also data, real-world data, and as well as AI-based in silico modeling, we aim to be the first in the market as a drug that changed the course of the natural course of disease. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much to both of you. We have now finished the session. Thank you for telling us, especially the part for your motivation for working on transfer for an academic, Professor Berenbaum. It was for me very important because to be engaged in such an adventure for an academic needs a lot of motivation, I guess, and yeah, it was needed to be told. So let me personally thank all the speakers for telling their success story. We are all been a little bit long, but this is due to an excess of enthusiasm, and this is not so bad. So now I leave the floor to my colleague Luca Ravo from the Direction of Research and Innovation at Sorbonne University for moderating the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Sabine, and thank you to all the speakers for those really exciting presentations. I think we had a few questions in the chat. Maybe you could quickly answer, so we won't be too late for the next question. There was one question addressed to Raphael from a regulatory point of view. Do you links with the academic world you, and how can interaction between Europe and university help you on this point?
Sorry, just once again, the question, please, Luca.
Oh, it's meant regarding the regulatory issues that you have to face, how European interactions between university could help you to face those challenges.
Yeah, I think this point is rather different from the academic perspective. I would say rather it has to be included in the training of all the colleagues to understand that it's a major part. So this is the first point. The second point is there needs to be a clear understanding by globally by Europe and by all stakeholders from European communities that we have to be we are facing, I would not say competition, but big interaction with other regulatory systems in the world, like US, like China or Asia. And so we need to also be competitive, and there must be lobbying from the European instance that our regulatory system is designed for patient safety, of course, but also in with the potential for a strong interaction in between companies and competent authorities, so it's working more efficiently.
Thank you. I have another question. Maybe Revital and Francis. I'm not sure if you have seen the question.
Of course, yes, I saw the question about the advantages and the disadvantages of European grants. So just at first we did have a European grant, which was a Eurostar with we were the leader of this grant. It was a Eurostar grant with three other academics, three academics in one company in Europe. So it was a very large project until the phase 1 clinical trial with a lot of biomarkers, etc. So it was a project of 4.2 million. And so it was a very important project for us. But let's say that we had also presented the EIC 3 years ago. And so just to give you the figures, there were 4,200 candidates. There were 130 companies that were for the part of the oral part that we had, the audition, and only 30 companies that were, let's say, granted. So we were not granted. But this is something that is very important. The disadvantage, the major disadvantage of European grants is that you need to have your own funds, meaning that it's 50% from your side and 50% from Europe. And this is not the case in the US. In the US, you can have any grant with no mandatory funds, let's say equity in parallel. So, and this is a real disadvantage for European companies compared to the US companies, where they can have millions of grants only on the project and not on the funds that they can raise. And this is a real, I think, a real issue in Europe. But yeah.
Yeah. Then on the academic point of view, I do not see any disadvantage because you are strengthening your network at the academic level. And I can see that it is so important then when you are at the clinical stage to embark all these key opinion leaders and in your project. And to do that, the fact that you've had a European grant is very helpful. So this is the view from the academic part, but for the objective of embarking the KOLs with you, with your project. And this is very, very important. Now we can see that because we can then have some of them in our scientific advisory board for the phase 2 clinical trial. This will be also helpful for our discussion with the EMA and the FDA. So this background of having European grants is very, very important. A part, of course, of the money by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much. I don't see more question in the chat, but I had maybe one last question that is more general for this session. We know that the one of the most challenging issue for our startups is to hire the best talents to build, of course, your successful company. So how do you manage to use the European networks to help you to find the best talent and to recruit the best experts in your field? Did you put some specific strategy?
Let's say that again, what has just said Francis, for recruitment by itself, we didn't use yet like the European network as an enrollment tool. However, for the KOL, again, for our scientific advisory board, for example, it is very, very important to have this network, and in this way, I agree totally with just what has just said Francis on this fact.
Thank you. I think that Guillaume, you mentioned some national action like the CIFRE, and I strongly believe that this kind of tools like CIFRE can help to engage some PhD directly in the industrial project. And could you elaborate a little bit about the advantage of this?
Yeah, well, it's really a good system for those who don't know. So you hire a student with a master's degree and in a PhD program, but he's hired by the company and share his time between the company and the lab. So it's a very nice opportunity for the student because he can continue a PhD program while not choosing immediately between the academic world and the industrial world for the rest of his career. So this is number one. For the company, it's like a very good way to have one of its collaborators, one of its employees directly involved into the lab in a very simple manner. And for the lab, it's also a good opportunity to have a PhD student who is really aware of the needs and the context of the company. So it's extremely fluid, very simple. In fact, I think we never had, it's like a very high rate of success when you file an application. And all in one, it's been always a big success. It's been existing for decades and a very successful program. And of course, it also allows for adapting the salary to the applicant, which is not always possible in the national programs.
Thank you very much. I think that we will move on to the next session. If I don't see any more questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's move to the second part. And we have now 3 keynotes on transfer issues. We will start with Maria Pontois from the CNRS, National Research Institute of France. And she's from the Institute of Human and Social Sciences, and she's the head of management. And she had a silver medal in 2022, last year. So, Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Could you see my presentation?
Yes.
Fine, perfect. The main problem for social sciences and the humanities is the number of disciplines, in fact. Coming from archaeology to digital humanities, through juridical sciences, economy, political science, history, philosophy, literature, and art. In the case of the CNRS, humanity and social sciences research units are much more 300, mostly in France, but also outside France in the world. And this is a very interesting opportunity for our researchers to be in a cluster or district with the researchers and also the social economic representative in different areas of the world. We have something like 25 units outside France. Valorization and transfer is one of the mission of my institution, but what it means, in fact. What I do every day, I try to detect some original results and innovative projects coming out from our research unit. And I try to advise and support laboratories for the transfer, identifying the different kind of possibility of transfer, which means partnership with business or local administration and association, technology transfer, consultancy or training activity, because we have a special department in charge of training activities and creation of startup. Some data and figures. As you can see, the most important part is for collaboration agreement and advice and service agreement. We have not a lot of patents or industrial partnership chair, but we have 14 joint research laboratories. This is a very useful mean, and it is preferred by our research. This is the reason for which I decided to focus on this mean. What is a joint research laboratories? We discussed just a few minutes ago about this idea to create a effective collaboration between scientific and companies, because it is characterized by a strategy and roadmap defined for 4 years. And this is a very right period to build a collaboration, not restricting itself to the goals defined in advance. The second point is the joint governance on the strategic and operational point of view, and a partnership contract with the technical appendix and respective contribution. This is a very good and appropriate framework for scientific exchange and research, which are the contribution for partners. Contribution from academic laboratories are particularly expected in terms of research capacity, expertise, and from enterprises. It concerns a capacity for research and engineering, access to data, sometimes equipments, and a familiarity with the market and a technological knowledge. Which are the benefits or interest for the research? The first one is the emergence of new topics for research acquired in contact with business, scientific publication, access to equipment or software platform and database, the attraction for doctoral candidates, we talked about that just a few minutes ago, the updated familiarity with industrial practices in the disciplinary field, the creation of software patents, the exploitation of the results, and the greater visibility of the collaboration. For business, the first one is the guarantee of scientific excellence and sometimes priority for new and innovative results. There is a real co-construction of the roadmap and their projection for the following 5 to 10 years, securing sustainability of the partner relationships, opening and evaluation of new technologies, and access on one side to laboratory research tools and to facilitate recruitment. It's a very important opportunity for business to recruit PhD doctors who they know during the joint research laboratory. And also the creation of innovative products and services and differentiated because they are issues from the partnership. Just one success story. It's an open lab on competitive intelligence, renewed 2 times in 2016 and 2 years ago again. The goals were a scientific program structured around 3 components. The first, the early identification of key technological partners and of subtle signs which may signal ruptures, understanding changes affecting the automotive industry and its value chain, and understanding new forms of mobility and the preoccupation for the vehicle use in a complex system. The respective contribution were the adaptation of methods for understanding the scientific and technological environment, which provide a framework for the partner's strategy for innovation, the transfer of technological intelligence expertise, and scientific resourcing for the common issues to the partner. There were the famous thesis partnership between a French company and a laboratory integrator. The results achieved take into account 20 experts aware of laboratory approaches to technological intelligence, a very good training, and had to take in decision and a support to advance innovative think tank of the group in different countries. For the unit research, evidently, it was some significant methodological development resulting from questions raised by the group, but also a growth and visibility of the laboratory expertise through the great trust placed by a large industrial group. This is the first case, and I would like to present two kinds of itinerary from ERC to Joint Research Laboratory or to EIC. The first one is coming from Sorbonne University, just to remember that we are that you organized this meeting. The first point is for transfer, the identification of the need. And the need is recommendation tools, taking into account the content of what is recommended for both users and producers of streaming services for breakthrough in the design of series recommendation systems. Evidently, we are in the field of cultural and creative industries. Several recommendation tools already exist, but all of them relying on use of metadata and user profile information without contents. The solution is to design this innovative recommendation system. The core of the concept is a smart, ethical, and advanced research tool that can provide viewers with a list and ranking of series responding specifically to their needs or requests and preferences. The innovation is to rely on a new generation of search engines based on a multimodal aggregation of data and criteria powered by an AI analysis. Sandra Leger, philosopher and professor, is at the origin of the conception of a new technological AI-based solution. Beta Série is one of the leading independent media platforms dedicated to television series in Europe and also produce analysis marketing solution for media players. With Beta Série, a Prématuration project is in progress, financed by CNRS, and the joint research laboratory proposal is involved. The second case is in the field of juridical sciences. The origin is an ERC project, identified cultural expertise as a frontier knowledge area with high risk and high gain potential for social impact. The first achievement is the development of a unique research approach that blended conventional legal approaches with critical cultural perspective. This approach allowed for a thorough analysis of how cultural expertise is used and its impact, working closely with legal professionals and the people who rely on and benefit from cultural expertise. The result is a digital platform. This platform is designed for storing, managing, retrieving, and rigorously citing case law and expert reports, and utilize both human and non-human inputs on a multilingual and cross-jurisdictional scale. Your expert obtained a ERC POC. And this ERC POC validated this project as an unprecedented know-how protected by trade secret legislation. The trademark was registered. Learning recognition from professional institution as a mark of quality and innovation, particularly in judicial education and among anthropological associations. This phase not only affirmed the social impact potential, but also established cultural expert as a commercially viable innovation. In 2023, Culture Exp transitioned into a foundation hosted by the CNRS Foundation, aiming to attract donation for further development with a specific emphasis on social impact. In this specific case, national subvention and European Union subvention has been very, very closely coordinated for helping the creation of a new startup, because the unique capacity of Livia Olden, that is a research director at CNRS and interdisciplinary social scientist with an academic background in law and anthropology in France and in the United Kingdom, to master the unprecedented data set of cultural experts, has garnered the support of Interlit-Off, positioning Livia Olden innovation as leader in this crucial aspect of legal technology development. She decided to apply to the European Innovation Council for the Transition Open, and this reflects her commitment to advancing the new field of cultural expertise. The EIC project has the potential to elevate Culture Exp into an unparalleled deep tech platform, combining pioneering know-how with a unique business model based on interactive learning. In these two last project, you have the example of an evolution including training, PhD training, master and PhD training, and combining national funds and European funds for the creation, in the second case, of a startup, even in social sciences and humanities. And this could be implemented much more thanks to the integration of a societal readiness level, completing the TRL, technological readiness level, for a better understanding of the value and the impact of social sciences and humanities projects in the different kind of disciplines. And my choice was to present you two kind of research in two fields particularly forgotten, in social sciences and humanities, for transfer. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you for this change of thematics, addressing the question of transfer in SSH, and also adding an example of success story and illustrating the differences and also the similarities with the success stories on more medical sciences, as we heard till now. Now we will leave the floor to Hervé Marc from Sorbonne University, who is the head of training of our DU on entrepreneurship. He launched and he was responsible of setting all the program of this DU, and he will explain you all about this program.
Thank you very much, Sabine, and I guess I should say thank you to Guillaume Fiquet as well for his teaser that makes my work more easy, since he gave you some insight into this joint program that was that was initiated last year in 2022, but has been engaging 4 universities for now over 2.5 years. So the joint education program on entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship project management has been designed by 4 of the 4U+ University Alliance, that I would say in a very, very equal and collaborative manner, knowing that Sorbonne University has taken the framing leadership, but it would not have been possible to initiate that program without the University of Warsaw, the Milan University, and Heidelberg as well. So the program, in a way, is based on 3 key ideals. We are providing education for postmaster students, creating an opportunity for those students, but also the academia and business entities to get connected and to work in a contributive manner. The objective of the program is first to bring postmaster students, PhD students, into understanding and, more importantly, learning how to use innovation project management, working in team, of course, but I would say using the online and the distance teamwork to the equation. The program is also based on multicultural dimension, because all students come from the 4 university backgrounds, and they are also connected with lecturers, professors, and subject matter experts coming from the 4 countries, and they are all coming from different backgrounds in terms of academic activities, humanities, science, and also health. And finally, it is also very important for us that this additional piece of education is also provided into a stakeholders communication and engagement approach. So the structure, as Guillaume Fiquet was mentioning, is based on learning by doing. So the program is an 8-month program, open to postmaster students and PhD students, and the students are there to learn about at least getting a common understanding and a common usage of the business language. We've seen in the first part how important it is to build bridges between the researchers and obviously the business applications. And I would say the program is also aiming at getting those students to understand better how the business works. For some of them, give them the opportunity to think about setting up their own business, but for others, joining organizations, businesses, so that they're able to be more effective in the way they would lead projects internally. What is also very important to us is tackling critical issues linked to the environment, the social dimension, and more importantly, the society as a whole. So all the information shared and, of course, the projects the students will be working in are truly embedded into this social and environmental responsibility that we'll all have in the end. And finally, we offer students, even if they are located into the 4 university, a similar framework and, of course, the benefit of local professors and tutors. So I'm not going to go into the detail of the program, but it is a mix of personal work, teamwork, and lectures, mostly online. We plan to have an exam at the end of June that is going to be a physical meeting that will hopefully gather all the stakeholders. Again, I'm not going to cover all the details, but it gives you a feel for the theme that students are going to go through in terms of both the fundamentals of entrepreneurship, but also the technicalities of project management. 230 hours of lectures and conferences from professors, subject matter experts from all the 4 universities, and also students will have some personal work, significant level of personal work, but again, provided them with the opportunity to learn how to manage their own also learning path and being tutored for half of those hours as well. A few figures, or at least who are the actors in our ecosystem. So students, last year was a pilot that only lasted 6 months. We had a fairly large amount of students already, over 30 students from the 4 universities. For this year, we actually started the first full year program 10 days ago. So we have 60% of the cohort this year are doctorate, so PhD students in first and second year. The rest are Master 2 graduates that are joining the program. We have a representation of the 4 universities, and we also have, obviously, a strong scientific background for those students, but some coming from health and others from humanities as well. When it comes to the other part of the equation, which is obviously the industrial corporate partners, I gave you a picture of the last or the 2 years of activities. On the left, you have the partners that have trusted us last year for the pilot program, showing the breadth of business type. Obviously, Guillaume mentioned the city of Warsaw. That was obviously an institution that wanted the students to be working on the water facility resilience in the face of global warming. And obviously, you see the list on the right of the business partners that have decided to support us this year with some extremely specific projects, very motivating projects. They actually did their pitch to the students last Friday, so it's fairly recent. And students will be broken down into groups, project groups next week, and they will be working on those projects for 8 months and working, I would say, with an objective to understand how to work in a more agile way and adaptable way, because innovation, especially in today's environment, requires an ability to work in a more adaptive way. Of course, they are going to learn about creativity and out-of-the-box thinking. And I guess one of the main reasons for the corporate partners to join in this program is they are realizing that they may not have all the solution internally. And they are looking for us as obviously the academic world, researchers and educators to provide them with an out-of-box thinking, and more importantly, looking at how interdisciplinary approach can bring new ways of driving creativity. Of course, the students will be equipped to manage cross-cultural and transnational online projects. And what is also very important is looking at the world not as a pyramid, but more on an equal footing of stakeholder management, because that is the way the world operates more and more. And in a way, to summarize the ecosystem, and I would say for me that is the pride that the 4U+ project team that has just started its year of activity is expressing, is today we are able to connect, obviously, postmaster students and PhD students with the breadth of the European University network, because they will benefit from lectures from professors in Milan, in Heidelberg, in Warsaw, and Sorbonne University. They will have access, of course, to entrepreneurs, alumni who are going to give some online conferences about their path as social entrepreneurs or as business leaders coming from the research field, and of course, giving them the insights into the reality of the business world. The industrial corporate partners are a fundamental base for the success of this joint program. And I have to say, I'm delighted to see how passionate they were about presenting their case to the students. It was quite an unusual approach, which was a kind of reverse pitching, where you had Roche Pharmaceutical or Safran Aeronautics pitching to 30 students to obviously make sure they got the best talents to join in on their projects. And then to finish off the picture, we also are able to connect those students with project tutors that are brought by each of the 4 universities. 2 of those project tutors are professors from universities, but 2 others are actually working in businesses. So it also gives a nice balance of experience, profile, and personality. We are also able to integrate some of the local university services, like the Fab Lab of Sorbonne University, where students will be manufacturing their prototypes in next May. We are also benefiting from the Warsaw incubator resources in the project management as well. And finally, one area that will be developing further, but I want to highlight as well, is the fact that students during the development of their project will need to conduct some market research, both with potential users of facilities. For instance, for effectively for the Roche project, they will need to talk to patients, but also they will need to get involved into institutions looking at regulatory compliance. So the opportunity of this program is to really create in a very operational, I would say, tactical approach, this idea of bridging connections between different stakeholders. So you understand that the benefits are obviously high for all of us. I'm not going to go into the detail now for being conscious of time, but I'll be open to answering any questions in your Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hervé, for this very enthusiastic talk. We have students that are very happy about this joint program, as we know from the last year. And I wish you success for this year too. We will take questions afterwards, and we will welcome our last speaker of today, Clarisse Angelier from the National Association for Research and Technology.
Thank you very much for your welcome. I have understood that this is without slides, then I have not. I'm going to be short because it's very late, and I suppose that the program for each of us is very stressed. Then I will just to show you or to explain you what is INRT, what is the CIF program, but someone have already said something before me, and the interest for us between research partnership. First of all, the National Association for Research and Technology has been set up in 1953, and we have celebrated its 70 years birthday the last June, with a large part of our R&D community, French community. Now our association gathers the 3/4 of R&D in France. INRT stands for the development of private-public research partnership, and we gathering all the scientific areas and all activity sectors. We, the INRT, National Association for Research and Technology, is a sort of a contact point between academic body, all companies doing research and innovation, but also executive government and parliament chambers. We work on many topics as French research and innovation ecosystem, but also national strategy for research for energy matters, digital policy, sustainability for the cities, spatial lunar policy, and more important to human science, the pedagogical by gaming. We also work on European matter, especially on Horizon Europe Framework Program, but you know it. We work with 3 aims. The first one is help our members to share their point of view and experiences. The second, from this point of view and experience, to set up a common vision and publish it, and also bring our messages to the policymakers and to influence their decisions. Our main objective is to make research a political object by 2027, the next presidential election. We will win if the speech of the candidates speak of research. That is not the case until today. Well, I'm going to speak a little bit about the CIF program. The CIF program was set up in 1981, and the research ministry has chosen the INRT to operate this largest doctoral training program named CIF, as I told. And that means industrial contract for training through research partnership between academic, laboratory, and company. Nowadays, this program is gathering more 5,000 PhD students doing their research with a laboratory and also a company. And we can set up this type of program in the framework of co-tutel, joining 2 academic laboratories. In this case, the PhD student shares timing between his company and the 2 laboratories. It's right now, the CIF program is a good balance between the small size company and the big one. And it's very important because this program helps us to penetrate also the small companies. I like to stress too that the company's job is research and not another job. It's very important that it's not for the PhD student to have a job and also to have research thesis in the firm with his academic laboratory, but the both company and academic laboratory supervise the student through the research for the thesis. And we are about 30,000 former CIFRE PhD as me. It's a strong teams, in fact, and we are very proud of it. After that, their PhD training, 80% of the graduates are employed by private company to do research. And the 20% of them go to the public body. It's very nice because it shows that the CIF program prepare very well to go to private sector and to do research in the private job. Most of the companies are very keen for this training program. They are particularly fond of the CIF PhD because they know the CIF PhD, they know to work in both sectors, private and public. They speak both languages, academic and business language. They have the ability to do research, even basic research, with the knowledge of the future potential application, even if this application is not already specified. In France, I have to tell that in France, there is a sort of competition between engineering degree and doctoral graduate. It's a specificity of our country, and it is a real problem, yes, because companies need to do more research and to stand in front of the energy and digital transition. Most of the global companies have PhD in their COMEX, and then the influence in favor of R&D and employment of PhD. And it is not the case in France, but we work on that. Well, now I'm going to conclude about the research partnership. I would like to take a little time on this important matter. The France industrial strength is built with few hundred big companies and 1,000 SMEs. The first lead research with big laboratories that work with academic body. And for the second, there are many startups, but most of the SMEs don't work really with the academic body. We want to increase the relationship through research for many SMEs. There are too many challenges in front of us, challenges that relate to our industry ability to be competitive, good employment, and social stability. It's for that our government has set up a law for the industrial reshoring. But that means new products and new production tools which are eco-friendly and set up on the French territory. And then more research, and then more PhD. For that, we have research tax credit, and it is a great defender of this research tax credit. This mechanism helps the company to do more research, to take more risk. And to conclude, really, I would tell that we are for the framework program for Research Horizon Europe, and it is also a financial and legal contact point on one hand, and EIC contact point in the other hand. Well, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Clarisse, for giving us the framework of the NRT in the French landscape. I want to thank all the three speakers of the second session. And now I leave the floor to Luca for the Q&A session.
Sure. Thank you, Thank you, everybody. It was a really exciting presentation again. We received a few questions in the Q&A chat. The first one was addressed to Maria Teresa Pontois about how can ethical considerations could be integrated into knowledge transfer processes to ensure responsible and impactful engagement with business and societal actors.
Yes, sorry. I am looking for the question in the chat. Could you repeat, Lucas, please?
How can ethical considerations could be integrated into knowledge transfer processes? Do you have an idea of a strategy or a more general way to assure that the ethical questions could be systematically integrated into those processes?
Yeah, we have a lot of researchers engaged in this question of ethical question and the treatment of data, confidential data, and they have developed for all the application much more in health program. They have developed a system of validation for the anonymization of data and for the treatment of this data for helping a better inclusion. We are in the world of societal inclusion, for the inclusion, for example, of people with some specific characteristics in the society and in the professional world. And we have what we usually call a platform for the treatment of this data, much more in health, and for the use of this data in a secure way. The problem is that before there was a science, the program Science with and for Society, and now, in the framework of this program, there were some project very interesting for that. I don't know if these results has been kept and if they are available today. So for researcher in CNRS, we have decided to develop our specific platform.
Thank you very much. We also have in the chat a question for Hervé. Hervé, what would you say is the best added value to all this course at the 4EU+ Alliance level rather than within a single university?
For me, there are several evident benefits. I would say from the student point of view, they have the opportunity to have an immediate access to the local ecosystem, meaning that students based in Sorbonne University will not be needed to travel and Google in a way some local experts. So the immediate one is the accessibility of the alumni network, the obviously the professors, and that is for me the first benefit. The second benefit from the academic point of view, I have to say I'm really fortunate to be working every week with the 4 academic networks, meaning that in terms of best practice sharing, it's obvious that each university has developed its own style when it comes to entrepreneurship, lecturing, and obviously case studies. And the benefit is that we put all that knowledge and, I would say, approach, practice, into one common pot, and all the preparation work allows us to share the best practice. And I would say what's also will be some benefits in the midterm, but not that far off, I would say within the next 2 to 3 years, is the fact that we will have developed a network of alumni coming from that particular university diploma, meaning that we will have a network of educated European project management coming out of the European university. So for me, that is certainly a stepping stone for future development. And another benefit is that we are developing some new practice that we could teach internally, and I'm thinking more specifically about the tutoring approach. In a way, what we are experiencing with the 4 tutors is how do we manage supporting students in their learning journey. And I would say that is unique in the sense, and we could imagine creating an internal academy of tutors so that we could also train a broader group of educators within the universities on what makes a successful tutor when it comes to tutoring online and tutoring, obviously, students coming from different universities.
Thank you. We have also another question regarding the program. How can entrepreneurship training like this one strike a balance between encouraging students to pursue innovative ideas and also ensuring that they understand and respect IP rights? Of course, you know, it's a big challenge.
Well, we are, in a way, the framework is designed first to show how entrepreneurship, mostly soft skills and practices, can be useful in driving projects in general. So the aim of the diploma is not to create a group of entrepreneurs. I think we have in each of the universities some specific programs for dedicated entrepreneurs. So the role of that is to bridge, in a way, to what Raphael Blanc and Jorge Molina said in the beginning, which is to make sure that the entrepreneurial skills are brought to the table as in the toolkit of that. Then to answer more specifically on the IP right, there are specific courses on ethics and governance, which are included into the program. It doesn't prevent, obviously, students from not following guidelines, but at least we want to address this issue of ethics and governance and, obviously, sustainability and social equity, and address it at one, obviously, the academic level, meaning that there are courses on those topics. And then in the tutorship phase, our tutors are extremely vigilant on the way students will approach benchmarking, approach, obviously, the usage of the data that are used. So far, our corporate partners have been trustworthy and not asked us to sign NDAs and to get the students to sign NDAs. But I guess that could be the end game. Nothing prevents us from going into that level of information, but at least so far we've managed to keep the innovation project in a more open mind. But yes, there is this issue in the long term, but we try to address, at least with the students' education, to be vigilant about that topic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think there is not much time left, but I received a question for Clarisse. It's more like a general question. I'm not sure that you have all the answers, but I think it's could be interesting to have your point of view. We are asked, how could we promote the wider adoption of joint doctorates as a valuable model for doctoral education in Europe?
Yes, if I understand your question, I have told that in the framework of CIF program, we can develop, can reach co-tutelle as we tell it, or joint doctoral program. I think it's a very good idea because we know that a PhD as us will have to work in international context and to be able to drive research, to drive and develop soft skill in other environment. And the CIF program is very nice because the PhD student grab two ability to do research in academic laboratory, but also in private company. And it's not exactly the same, even if many of companies do a very good basic research. But it's very important to grab also foreign ability, an ability to work in foreign context. And it's for that that I advise to develop a joint PhD as much as possible. It's very, very interesting. And I know that in Europe and even around the world, not all countries are keen of this type of management or organization for PhD training. Sometimes some countries tell me that they are not sure that there is a good balance between the quality of the research. They are afraid to share diploma or diplomation. They are not sure that the PhD student, when he's abroad, that he will do research and not do something else. We have to progress on this type of organization for research training or by training. I hope so that I have answered to your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think Guillaume Fiquet maybe has a question or a comment.
Yes, I just wanted to elaborate on this because indeed in the alliances and in 4U+, we really want to help and develop research, and joint PhD is clearly the way we support. Within the call that we launch and on our proper funds within several universities, these joint PhDs basically are embedded already in the way 4U+ processes, and we already have some of them ongoing right now. Then I had two other comments about the DU Hervé Marc presented. I think that's really something very attractive because we have a clear benefit for students. We have the connection with companies, and we have the connection with several partners within the alliance. And all the partners have their own local conditions and questions and companies, and we really would like to use that kind of connection to make some kind of networks of networks. And my final comments here, we would say that's a very exciting time because we've seen a lot of and heard about a lot of success stories, but I see that the success stories are just come from the connection between a lab, a local environment, and companies and ideas. So far, I think we still have to develop and promote the connection within the network within the alliance, because this connection to the European level is done sometime with research. We've seen some connection with Horizon 2020 research program that we're access to. But I mean, the idea to to use the alliance as a springboard to go upscale at the European level. We are not there yet. Maybe that's because that's complicated because of regulation, because of IP. I was hearing research done for osteoarthritis, for example. So we could imagine that there could be some clinical trials that could be developed at the same time in, I don't know, Milan or Heidelberg, Warsaw, or other places, because we could use the alliance to do that. Because I see that all these efforts are really directed to address the US or China markets, but maybe you are not using our own alliance to help us to do that at the first. But that's just a general perception of what was said, and I think we have here a very exciting time to make it this more efficient and use our alliance to achieve all the such nice goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guillaume. It sounds to me like the perfect conclusion for this really rich webinar.
That was not my intention, just to conclude. Anybody can conclude, but
so I think it's time to close the seminar, and again to give a big thank you to all the speakers today that took the time to present their success stories, and also the different tools that they developed at European, local, national level, and it was really, really, really useful. So thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
bye-bye.
C'est super intéressant.
Ah oui.
Oui, merci. En fait, il a tout dit, Guillaume, à la fois.
Très bien.
Non, mais,
Bien, du coup.
très bien.
On aurait dû lui demander dès le début.
C'est ça. Non, mais voilà.
Donc, et voilà, on est en...
Bon, Johan, bravo. Hein.
Ouais.
Bravo, Johan, c'était très bien.
Bravo à nous tous. Hein, pour,
Non, mais écoute, au final, c'était très bien. Franchement.
Ouais. Et,
moi, j'ai appris plein de trucs. Hein. Perso, c'est pas exactement mon sujet, mais.
C'est le Pio hein, qui nous a fait perdre du temps.
Ouais, c'est ça.
Ouais. Bon, je remercie aussi Rita hein, qui m'a beaucoup aidé en termes
de franchement, merci à tous les deux pour toute la communication, l'organisation avant et pendant le webinaire.
Ouais. Finalement, un bon résultat après 13 mois de montage. Franchement, moi, je suis très content. Voilà, je pense que c'est la même chose pour vous, mais...
Ça aurait pu tenir en une journée, en fait.
Ouais, finalement. J'ai eu un petit stress au milieu. Je me dis, c'est pas possible, on a 45 minutes de retard, on va pas y arriver. Mais bon.
Ouais, mais c'est pour ça, bon, voilà, comme je voyais que les questions, ça s'excitait pas trop, mais que finalement les présentations étaient assez complètes, j'ai préféré voilà, ne pas trop retarder. Et puis bon, sachant aussi que Clarisse Angelier passait en dernier.
Oui,
bon. Voilà. Je voulais pas.
Il faudra faire un petit message de remerciement à chacun des speakers, je pense.
Ouais, alors je ne sais pas ce que vous en pensez, mais moi je propose qu'en fait on envoie des messages en fonction de qui a invité. C'est-à-dire que peut-être que Lise envoie un message à Clarisse Anchelier, j'envoie les messages à la commission, enfin je ne sais pas comment vous voyez les choses, mais peut-être un message général de remerciement à tous les speakers, et puis des messages particuliers de la part de ceux qui ont invité.
Oui, oui, je pense que c'est peut-être pas mal. Après, il y a aussi quelques niveaux, c'est-à-dire que voilà, je pense que c'est bien, tu vois, si ça part d'un VP à Clarisse Angelier.
Oui, par exemple.
Ça fait pas de mal. Voilà. Après, bon, je pense que en gros, moi, je peux envoyer des messages aux trois créateurs d'entreprise, voilà, un peu direct, quoi. Voilà.
Puis Sabine, elle est partie, mais je pense qu'il faut remercier Sabine aussi.
Carrément, oui, oui.
Oui.
Je l'ai incluée. Elle a mené ça de main de maître. Je pense que c'était super.
Très bien. Et puis du coup, comme il y a eu Lima, on peut se féliciter d'avoir mené ce projet jusqu'au bout.
Ah, mais
Oui, Train for
franchement,
You, c'est fini.
c'est toi, Johan, franchement, et Boluka qui a mis pas mal la main à la fin et t'as beaucoup aidé. Donc, je suis désolée, j'ai un peu abandonné, mais bon. Et,
Non, mais c'est un travail de longue date.
ouais.
Bon, je rappelle qu'on est toujours en train d'enregistrer, hein. Enfin, je dis ça comme ça.
Ah,